Hi, I'm Brian Anderson. This is Coast Connections, and this month is Renovation Month, so we've got some people here from the Canadian Home Builders Association of Vancouver Island. I'm going to shorten that down to the home builders. But with us tonight, Mark Bernhardt, and you're the new president. Jason Schmidt, you're the outgoing president, past president, and Kerriann Coates, you're the new executive director. So who would like to start off talking about renovations? Jason, that's your sort of...
Sure. Yeah, that's something that we do in our business. So renovations, I think, can be a great way to add value to the home and functionality. And it's a great way to handle kind of the changing needs of a household, whether that's the family's growing or just the lifestyle's changing.
Okay, and what's the sort of most significant thing you can do to a house to improve its value?
Well, I think it's pretty common knowledge that kitchens and bathrooms are generally what people look at in terms of value, because they're kind of the higher price tags involved in renovations in those areas. And that's something that people spend a lot of time into, and it's certainly sort of on vogue right now. People are really into their kitchens and having that kind of gourmet kitchen. And as well as bathrooms, that's something we've definitely seen. People are investing a lot more into their bathrooms than they would have typically in the past.
You see the most return there, right?
Yeah, I see a good return.
Yeah. So if people had questions or queries or wanted information, could they contact the home builders just to find out about things?
In terms of getting quotes for different projects, they can absolutely contact our office, or you can go online and see all of the builders, renovators that are members of our association.
There's a lot of resources as well on the CHBA website, both the CHBA-VI and our local website. There's resources out there for homeowners that are looking at, just how to get started, where to start the process, and sort of just beginning to kind of collect information and ideas.
I would add to that it's really important to pick the right contractor, and it's difficult for those in the general public to know whether a contractor is really qualified to do it. And at the members of the Home Builders Association have all been pre-vetted by other builders. So these are builders that have had their references checked, their insurance, all those sorts of things that go into making a proper building business. And it's done by other builders who know what to look for. So it's a good place to start.
And isn't that one of the things that you sort of stress, is that with home builders, that they're constantly upgrading and taking training on new techniques and things like that? Are there courses?
Yeah, so we offer courses directly for our members as well as non-members, so that they can get continuing education points throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's for new home builders that require that ongoing education, and we encourage our renovator members as well to take the courses. I personally have taken several of the courses, and they've been very beneficial, and it really just is one of the pieces of the puzzle to put together a professional operation. And you hear a lot of negative things sometimes about renovators, and we really encourage that level of professionalism with our renovator members.
Yeah, that level of professionalism really comes from those courses we're talking about are not just about how to put things together or what products to use. A lot of it's actually about how to run your business and how to do human resources and how to manage clients and things like that really benefit our clients in making the job run smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's components too, like customer service and providing a better service for the clients, and then the homeowner, I think, can really value from that level of professionalism.
Absolutely.
So the first hint I think you mentioned was qualifications, that somebody should be qualified to undertake the work. Do you have other hints that the viewers would be interested in hearing?
Well, I think we hit on it well. References is another good one. So make sure you check out at least 3 references. Any renovator that's been in business for any amount of time should have no trouble producing that for you. Another thing that, especially for more significant renovation or maybe a specialized renovation, like a heritage home restoration, that type of project, you might want to ask for references specific to that type of work. Not, so they might have references from doing kitchens and bathrooms, but maybe not a whole entire house project involving a lot of structural work, for example.
So if a house is older, there may be more challenges to it.
There's a lot more challenges, a lot more complex, and typically the scale of the project is quite a bit bigger as well, and there will be structural work, so have to involve the city on different levels, engineers. There's just a lot more facets to it.
Isn't my understanding is that if you're doing some renovations, you don't necessarily have to go through the permitting process if it's under a certain limit or something.
It would really depend on what it is. You know, if you're doing something like painting a room, you know, maybe just changing the flooring under most circumstances, you wouldn't necessarily need a permit, but for anything more significant than that, really that's when permits start to become involved, and you'd have to consult with the municipality just to make sure. You know, unless there's really clear-cut divisions there, it is worth the homeowner going out to check, especially if their renovator is saying, no, you know, we definitely don't need that. There are renovators out there that would prefer to operate without a permit. No members of the Canadian Home Builders, of course, but that is something to watch out for. If you need a permit, you definitely need to be going and getting one.
Because the onus is on the home builder or the homeowner, to make sure that they have that in place if it is required.
Yeah, and all the more reason to work with a trusted and reputable renovator to make sure that happens.
Absolutely.
To kind of distill it down a little bit, you will need a permit anytime you're moving or adding plumbing. So if you're moving a fixture, even if you're moving a toilet 2 feet, you would want to, there needs to be a permit pulled for that. And it may just be a plumbing permit, but you'd need a permit for that.
You just can't slide it?
You can't slide it, no. It doesn't work out very well, typically, Brian. So, and then anytime there's structural changes. And anytime safety as well is another consideration for when you need to have a building permit.
Like a deck, obviously, might have safety issues.
That's right, to make sure that the railings are installed properly and safely.
Okay. Any other hints? I know you're just moved out to BC, so this is a bit of a change for you.
Yeah, but I would say knowing your budget early and leaving a little space for unforeseen costs and things like that. The things, especially when you're speaking about the heritage homes, there are things that are going to come up that are unforeseen. So wanting to keep a little for that.
I think the key to any successful renovation is the planning and preliminary phase to it. So you need to, again, work with someone who has experience because it's very easy to look at maybe just the flooring you're putting in, but not consider all the other factors that are related to the flooring, like the trim. What kind of prep is that floor going to need? Is the floor even structurally sound to put new flooring on? You don't want to put in thousands of dollars of new flooring on a floor that can't really support it. Taking the time to plan things out and design it properly and specify the products you're going to use to make sure that your budget can be accurate is really important.
And I think that was a good point about contingency. You always need a little bit of a buffer,
Yeah, that's right.
Just
and
to protect you.
That should be, again, with a professional renovator, that should be part of their service to figure out, whether it's contingency built into their budget or if it's a contingency amount that's kind of discussed with you. And different people have different comfort levels too about, what kind of contingency they want to have, and some are kind of okay just to go in and they've been through the process before. They, expect some of the unexpected.
Take a good planning.
And I guess the other thing that you mentioned was, getting a quote. So it would be reasonable to ask a builder or a renovator, whatever, to give you a quote on the pricing. Should that be broken down?
In my opinion, yes, it should, and I would even back that up a little bit further. When you're going out to choose your builder or renovator, I would highly recommend that you interview 3 builders at least, and because you're about to get into a relationship with this person that could last quite a long time, and it's important that you be compatible. And a good builder will actually be interviewing you as well to make sure that you're compatible with them. And then from that initial relationship, then it's appropriate to ask for the pricing, and it may come in the form of a fixed price quote or a time and materials contract, perhaps with a guaranteed maximum estimated cost. And for a reno, I think we typically see. I mean, Jason maybe does a few more than us, and he might have a better answer there. But we typically see a lot of the time and materials type of contracts because there is that unknown, and it allows for that little bit more flexibility. But it really depends on the project.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Typically, renovations are on a time and materials basis. And all the more reason, again, to go with someone that has the experience that can prepare a proper budget, because that's usually where projects go awry, is that the project hasn't been properly budgeted, whether that's not accounting for all of the known components or not adding proper contingency throughout the budgeting for the unknowns.
Right. And speaking of contingencies or compensation, I did mention at the beginning, I'd mention what your day jobs were, because
sure.
Mark, you're with Bernhardt Contracting.
That's right.
And Jason, you're with Pheasant Hill.
That's right, Pheasant Hill Homes. Yeah.
Pheasant Hill Homes.
Correct.
And
This is my day job.
this is your day job. So you just have one hat and you have
Yeah.
two hats. So you're volunteers with the association then?
That's right. The board is all volunteer. Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to renovations, I know that October is sort of renovation month. Is there a specific reason for that, or is it just that's when people start thinking about doing something in the winter?
Yeah, I think that's actually a little bit true. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly during the summer, for at least my experience has been that renovation slows down because everybody's out playing and
Yes.
out enjoying the weather. And then as fall comes, everybody comes back inside and starts looking at the drab, dreary kitchen and dreaming about what they could do with it, ideally before Christmas, before all the guests come, right?
Yeah, and I think that October is also a good month because it does take, with a project of any size really, it takes a certain amount of time to get all the preliminary work figured out. So it's a good time if you're looking for that spring start, especially if a bigger project that's going to require some outside work. Spring's a great time to start it. And so that gives you a few months to get the head start on it.
So when somebody comes to you and says, okay, well, I want to do certain things and I've got a budget, does that sort of limit you in what your approach is, or do you offer suggestions?
Well, I'll jump in here. That's the ideal situation, is that people are upfront about what they're comfortable spending, because the worst thing that we can do as a renovator is to kind of come in not knowing exactly what the client's willing to spend or comfortable spending. And being upfront about your priorities is really important too. Often people have a wish list, and I don't think I've ever come across a project where people didn't want more than they were comfortable spending. So you really have to work to define your priorities as a homeowner and be really clear about that with your builder.
So then priorities, and then some other thing like a wish list, things you might get or might not.
Obviously, sometimes we're surprised and we can fit more into that number than initially expected. And so, of course, we want to work in those wish list items. And we really encourage people as well to splurge on a few areas because that's something that they'll never regret, and they'll smile every time they see it and be happy that they did it.
Mm-hmm. I know we did a kitchen about a year and a half ago, and placing the dishwasher, which takes up a fair bit of cabinet space, was a challenge. And so we went with a drawer that went under the sink, which I think is fantastic. But with us being empty nesters now, we basically wash the dishes by hand.
Right.
So it's kind of counterproductive. But so when you're looking at quoting on a job, do you look at different kind of specs as far as materials or other options?
Yeah, definitely. And the more information, this goes back to the pre-planning, right? The more time you spend planning and the more precise you can be, the more precise we can be in our pricing. So if you have every piece laid out, then it's easy for us to go and get that. Otherwise, typically what you would see is a range, and we'll give a range for flooring or a range for this or that, and then be able to proceed.
Yeah, I think in general, just reflecting on our past projects, the projects that are the most successful are typically the ones where the homeowner engages a renovator earlier rather than later. You just see it time and time again where because the homeowner does not do this every day, in and out, they won't have as good an experience with, projecting the costs for the project and, knowing all the detail that goes into it as well. So the sooner they can get a renovator involved with the project, then they kind of take that load from the homeowner, and then you can kind of trust it to the renovator to work it all out. And so that's typically how we work with our clients at Pheasant Hill, is we get involved early on in the process and really help them, because it is something that we do for a living. We do it all day, every day, so we could really help guide and direct the process and take a lot of that stress of all the decision making from them.
Well, you mentioned expertise, and you also mentioned priorities, because we all hear situations of people that have champagne taste and beer budget.
Correct. Yeah.
So what do you do in that kind of situation? Just, like you say, balance?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one. That's something we're confronted with on just about every project, and to different degrees, obviously. But I think the best thing you can do is start with that base. So we know what the priorities were. We know what the main priorities were, so we start there, and then just reflect the other things, maybe the wish list, as options that you can add on to your base, what we'd call maybe a base price. And you look at that and say, well, we can do this for the number you're comfortable with. These wish list items, they're going to be, this amount more to add on to the project. And a good renovator should have no problem providing that information for you.
And I guess that goes back to the contingency issue, because if you've got a contingency built in and you don't encounter some other challenges, then some of your wish list can then be brought in.
That's right.
Cities can be tacked on at the end, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It also goes back to the relationship of trust that you have with your renovator, right? To help guide you to what is realistic and what is within your budget and as well.
So if you run into a problem or a challenge and it becomes confrontational, what do you do? Can you go to the home builders and get mediation, or?
Yeah, we could be approached on that. I would think at that point they've already had as far as they can take it with the builder themselves before they're probably coming to us.
Yes, if the builder is a CHBA member, we do have a process, not only a disciplinary process within the CHBA if the builder has violated our code of ethics, but we also have the ability to help mediate, at least in an informal way, and perhaps a lot of these things, they're quite often misunderstandings or miscommunications, and we can help that way by having an unbiased third party come in to help out. But ideally, before it ever gets that far, the renovator and the home builder have a really good contract. And the first step is any hiccup occurs would be to go and review the contract to make sure that everybody's following the process, and that's what's going to keep us out of the courtrooms and everybody working towards the same goal.
Well, we hope it doesn't end up in that kind of a situation, but I guess there are always horror stories, but and hopefully it doesn't get to the situation where you're having to pay a lawyer, because then it's just...
And nobody wins.
Nobody wins, yeah, exactly. So what is the most, I guess, not challenging, but rewarding situation that you've come across doing renovations?
That's a
Well,
good question.
there's always the cliche of the happy client, and the family moves in and really likes it. But for me, it's the individual little pieces along the way. The well-planned project where the crew comes out happy that they've been able to do a good job. The client is happy, and all the little pieces in between.
That's a good point, because you mentioned crew, so it isn't just you that's there. It's often the nail pounders and guys that have those skills. So it's important, I guess, that everybody sort of enjoys the process.
Yeah. If they've got good satisfaction, then chances are everybody else on the job is also having a good time and enjoying what they're doing, proud of what they're doing, that kind of thing.
So is that a key in hiring people?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. We look for people that love what they do, and you can tell, and we hear that from our clients quite often, that you can really tell that our crew loves what they do, and it makes all the difference for us as employers too, to work with guys that really appreciate the finished product at the end of the day. And it's always great. Occasionally we get invited out to a finished project to have a barbecue or some coffee with the clients when they're in their new home, and it's really satisfying, and it's great to share that with everyone.
So as far as construction is concerned, is it hard to get people or hire employees? Or is it...
Well, right now we're in a pretty significant boom within the industry. So talent is hard to come by. for us, it's about being a really top-notch employer. Providing really top-notch work environment, working on interesting, great projects, and providing that place where people can be satisfied and follow their dreams and work through their career. So we've had reasonably good success hiring really talented carpenters apprentices that stay with us then through their journeyman.
Well, that's good. And you mentioned the economy, and I guess that's so. Kerriann, did you notice a difference coming to BC compared to back east?
Absolutely. So we have a bit of a housing boom that's starting to happen in Ontario right now. It's not the same as here. We were chatting about the costs have gone up obviously in the last little while, and it's a big change from BC to back in Ontario. But
yeah, that cost is something really critical. I think that a lot of homeowners need to be at least a little bit aware of. They don't need to know the numbers, but when we're in a boom time, costs generally will go up, and even month to month, so that sometimes it's difficult for a builder to supply a price one month and then the costs escalate to the next month, and it's hard to stick to that same cost. And so it's important for, I think, homeowners to recognize those challenges and work with your builder to not only keep your costs down as much as possible, but allow the project to go ahead in a way that manages that.
Know the costs that are variables and know the fixed kind of thing
exactly.
as you're building your contract.
And I'd say that's an asset that a professional renovator, especially a renovator member, would bring to the table. If someone's kind of weighing whether they want to, kind of go it on their own and try and do the project, or if they're going to hire a renovator to take care of it for them. The trades, especially right now, are very busy, and it's tough to get them on the phone to give us estimates and quotes, and to get service, and we're the ones that are kind of sustaining them through the long term, right? So I've heard some stories, especially recently, the homeowners having challenges managing that, and I think that's just a great value that a renovator can bring to the project.
Well, and you mentioned earlier about planning the process, because I guess what a lot of people really want to know is what's a cost, and they want to know that early up, but really that's something that's limited, because until you've gone through that process, you can't really establish what the costs are. But then you're at least closer to getting started and keeping those costs within line.
Yeah, well, I think Jason mentioned it earlier there. And the process of engaging a renovator early, before maybe every detail, it can be an asset there, because they'll be able to give you a range. A professional will be able to give you a range of where we stand, and then as we go through the planning process, that range gets tightened and tightened up until we've got an exact number, or at least as close to exact as we can get.
And I guess the other side of it is it's probably less complicated than building a whole house, so if you can work with timing, it may be better for everybody that you can do it in a slow period or whatever.
Yeah, some renovations are. Some renovations, I would say, are actually more challenging than building a new home, just because of the different aspects that are involved, and the building science and the structural challenges that can be there, especially in a really old home. So actually, building new houses is fairly straightforward. You get a plan and you just execute it, whereas renovations, there's all sorts of challenges you can encounter. Even an experienced renovator will run into some things that will make us scratch our heads, and we just have to work around it and consult with an engineer if necessary, or the city, to come up with a solution.
So do you ever run into a situation where you open up a wall and the electric problems are just
We had
a
that
nightmare?
yesterday. Yeah. That's just a normal Monday.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the time, and a lot of times it isn't because the previous renovator was doing a poor job. It's maybe it's the previous standard. Maybe a homeowner at some point got in there and didn't really know what they were doing. Any number of things can cause that. One project we worked on recently had a lot of rodent damage, which you could not see on the surface. We had no idea, and that's relatively common. Nothing to do with anything, regards to the building. It's just it happens.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of buying more duct tape with your contingency?
Ideally not.
No, it's not the best one.
Yeah.
In this climate too, we typically see a lot of damage from moisture ingress, so rot in the wood, and that also will attract ants and termites.
Yeah.
So we see, and that's damage that's hard to see from the outside,
Yeah.
like Mark was saying. But again, a professional renovator is going to know the signs. They're going to have seen different things at different projects to lead us to believe that, you know, we at least estimate for a certain amount of that. If it's not there, great. But if it is there, then we've accounted for at least a portion of it.
Okay. Any other bits of advice or pearls? Any?
Well, I mean, you know, if you're just thinking about renovating, you know, definitely go check out the Home Builders website. There's a lot of good information there. The Reno Month website, which I believe is renomonth.ca, is a really great resource. And on there and connected to the Home Builders websites, there's also another website called Get It in Writing, which is all about contracts, how to work through a contract. There's some really good videos on there for the homeowner that maybe hasn't done a reno before, and for homeowners that are maybe experienced and just want to update on what the latest and greatest contracts are talking about. So I highly recommend anybody thinking about it that you go visit there.
That's good. So I told you at the beginning that this would probably go quickly for you, has it?
It has.
Yep.
So I want to thank Mark, Jason, and Kerriann for this information. And if anybody has any questions, the website for the home builders will be shown on the screen, as well as the phone number. And as far as Shaw is concerned, if anybody has suggestions for a show or something like that, we'll be showing our email address, and by all means email us and we'll see what we can do.
Excellent.
So thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thanks, Brian.
It's been fun.